How much lean mass did you gain over what period of time, would you say, once making these changes?
So in a span of, oh God, I'd have to go back and look at the exact data. I believe it was 13 or 14 pounds of lean mass in about 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, that's not Herculean, right? Like these are not
Yeah.
insane numbers. Not taking anabolic steroids. This is, relatively doable for someone who is making it a high priority to eat the right amount of protein, the right
Mm-hmm.
kind of protein, and spacing it and consuming it at the right times, and then also focusing training on a little more hypertrophy.
So for people listening, I'm asking these questions not simply because I'm interested in lean muscle mass, but also the implications for longevity. So I'm guessing you did not put all of that lean muscle on your biceps and that there were other movements that were incorporated for very particular reasons. If I'm getting my read on Dr. Peter Attia right, as I think I am. So perhaps you could just describe some of those changes and also protein and how you suggest people think about protein, how you began thinking about protein.
Yeah, I'll start with that, and then we can talk about the training. So the protein basically went to a very conscious and concerted effort to increase protein to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to ask, is that 1 pound of actual body weight? Is that 1 pound of lean body weight? Is that 1 pound of target body weight? The answer is, for someone my size and weight and my body fat percentage, I think at the time I was about 15% body fat, it really doesn't matter. It could be basically, call it 1 pound of current body weight. 1 gram per pound of current body weight is sufficient. So that's what I did. The next question, though, becomes timing. And this is something that
Right.
until a couple of years ago, I wasn't really paying enough attention to. So it wasn't enough to just say, well, Peter, you got to have 180 grams of protein in a day. Because, for example, 290-gram boluses of protein doesn't accomplish nearly the same thing as 4 45-gram servings spread out over the course of a day. So there is kind of a sweet spot with protein where you really need to be north of about 20 to 25 grams to ensure that those amino acids aren't just going into what's called the gluconeogenic pathways. We can turn protein into glucose, but we don't really want to.
Mm-hmm.
Protein should be thought of as a structural nutrient, whereas we want to really think of carbohydrates and fats as energy nutrients. So you have to have enough protein in a given serving that you don't just have the liver take it and use its bit for gluconeogenesis. At the same time, you don't want to have too much. And too much is a bit of an unclear limit, but my best reading of the literature is that you're starting to hit too much at about 50 grams in a serving.
Mm-hmm. And what type of protein are we talking about, just in terms of, I'm thinking of bioavailability and protein efficiency ratio. How should people think about quality or type of protein?
So the first decision I think everybody wants to make is, am I getting this from plant or animal? And, again, unfortunately, this has become sort of a contentious topic, and it's, got its sort of political, religious overtones to it. But if you don't concern yourself with any of those things and you just think about biochemistry, there's really no ambiguity here. Protein derived from animal sources are more bioavailable. So you can overcome some of that by cooking the plant. So once you start to cook the plant and free it up from the fiber, you can, liberate more of the plant protein. But you're still always going to be struggling with a bit of a bioavailability problem that can be anywhere from, a 20 to 30% haircut you're taking just on the net consumption of the amino acid. The second issue comes down to amino acid quality. And if you're really concerning yourself with hypertrophy, I think the 3 most important amino acids would be leucine, lysine, and methionine. And these are amino acids that also you don't tend to have as high a quantity in plant protein. Now you can get them, and it gets especially hard if you can't have like dairy or eggs. So if someone says, look, I'm a vegetarian, I'm not going to eat beef or chicken, but I'm willing to have eggs and dairy, it gets a lot easier. Eggs, for example, are a very high source of methionine. So what we typically will tell patients is, rather than just fixating on the total number of grams of protein you need to eat, which you may have a hard time hitting, if you focus on the number of grams of leucine, lysine, and methionine you're getting in a given meal or a given day, that will almost assuredly get your total protein quantity to the right place. So for me, that really meant I just wanted to make sure I was getting, probably 6 to 8 grams of leucine a day, comparable amount of lysine, at least 2 grams of methionine a day. And I use an app to track what I'm eating just so that I can keep, see where my protein is coming from and how much I'm getting and when and where. And that tended to work out pretty well.
What is the name of the app, if you're willing to mention it?
Yeah, it's called Carbon. I have no affiliation with it, but a friend of mine, it's, his app, and I like it. I guess my affiliation is that it's my friend's app.
I'm glad you brought up the leucine, lysine, and methionine, because I was going to ask earlier if while you were fasting but losing lean muscle mass over time, you were supplementing with, say, branched chain amino acids in any fashion.
I used to always drink BCAAs during workouts. And for folks listening, there are 3 branched chain amino acids. And leucine is hands down the most relevant of them. And we know from work that our mutual friend David Sabatini has done in his lab that leucine is a very, very potent mTOR stimulator. In fact, it might be the single most potent stimulator of mTOR. mTOR, of course, acutely, you want that thing stimulated. It's promoting growth. You don't want it chronically stimulated, but you want it acutely stimulated. The problem with branched chain amino acids, and I got to tell you, Tim, I think it's largely fallen out of favor. So I don't even consume branched chain amino acids anymore. During a workout, I'm literally just consuming an electrolyte drink. That's it. Mm-hmm. The problem is, 1, they don't stick around long enough in their free form. And 2, you're just not getting enough of them. The third thing is the temporal nature of when you take them in. Being in the workout or a couple hours after the workout doesn't really seem to matter. Our window in which we can synthesize new muscle is sufficiently broad that even for an untrained individual who has a narrower window, it's totally reasonable to say, look, just make sure a couple hours after that workout, you get in your big protein meal. So instead, today, I just use high quality whey protein post-workout, and I don't trouble myself with consuming any protein in workout.